Jó reggelt kívánok, hogy vagy? Jó? Start of another day. It's about 6 a.m. on Sunday. Hmm. God, I love that coffee. There were times that I never drank coffee. It was back in I think it was back in my 20s that I was drinking just, potfuls of coffee or something like that. And my late 20s, as a matter of fact. And I had an anxiety attack. I think it was an anxiety attack, but I had this anxiety attack or something like that, and I thought that I thought that it must have been the coffee. So I gave up coffee for a long time, and the taste didn't appeal to me. Um, it was just one of these things I just didn't really care for. And then I kind of gravitated towards one of those fluffy drinks at Starbucks. I'm not even sure if I can remember it. Something like a two-shot white mocha, caramel on top, cinnamon on the side, uh, you know, uh, cappuccinos or something like that. And for years, there was a period of years, every day I had to have my Starbucks fix. And I had to go down and spend something like $5.50. Is there anybody out there watching these videos that does that? Is there anybody out there that has a habit of going to a place like Starbucks every day and spending $5, $6 on a cup of coffee? I can't see myself doing that. But yet, you sit there in a Starbucks as I travel around the world. You sit there in a Starbucks and you see that line. You see that line and you see person after person just walking out with a big ass, big ass drink. And more times than not, from the look of the person, it's a drink that they probably shouldn't be drinking. But anyway, I wasn't even going to talk about that this morning. When I start to do my videos, it's interesting as to what my thoughts are gonna what where my thoughts are gonna take me, I should say. But I got to give a big shout out to Paula in the Big Easy. Got to big give a big shout out to Paula. I was talking to Paula yesterday on Messenger, and we were talking about the whole rating system on YouTube. With the thumbs up and the thumbs down or something like that. And Paula said something that was rather enlightening and rather insightful. And I had always uh, I had always thought, my tendency was to think when I got a thumbs down that somebody didn't like me or like what I was saying or didn't like something along those lines. And and Paula shared something that was it's just the obvious. It's just the obvious, and and I believe that she's right. Paula was saying that when something happens, for example, when my father passed away, and I go up and I do a video, Paula said people aren't going to do a thumbs down. People are going to do a, people are going to do a, or people aren't going to do a thumbs up. People are going to do a thumbs down because they're sad. It's just an expression of their emotion or something. It's not necessarily an expression of hate or something like that. And rather, Paula, that was a rather astute. That was a rather astute observation on your part. So I think that there's still the my house guest here, my LTC, my lovely travel companion. Um, she originally reached out to me, and for the purpose of telling me, this is like 3 or 4 years ago. She had originally reached out to me to tell me that she loves my videos, and they help her learn English. They help her learn English. And you know, it's probably with my using words like astute that people, and she was not the only person. She's not the only person that told me that they like to watch my videos because of that they like to watch my videos because it helps with their English. But anyway, what else is on my mind today? So if you were to go down in my garage right now, you would see my staging area. My staging area. I pulled the camper up yesterday, and the camper is sitting, camper trailer, whatever you want to call it. It's sitting right outside my garage door, and it's getting ready to be loaded. And we're thinking about all the weight and thinking about what to take and not what not to take and all this type of stuff. But for all intent and purpose, the camper will be loaded. The camper will be loaded today, and we're going to be heading out on Thursday. But so that'll take up most of the day. But you know, as I was thinking about doing my morning video today, I thought about sharing a story. I thought about sharing a story with those of you that follow me that I told to my LTC yesterday. And you know, let me say this. Let me preface the story with this. Um, if I were to on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, tell you, I mean, it's been what she wrote Wednesday evening. Here it is Sunday morning, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So she's been here the better part of 3 days. And if I were to rate the the experience so far on a scale of 1 to 10, in all honesty, and I think there's those of you out there that may doubt me, I'd probably have to give it somewhere between a an 8 and a 10. I mean, in all honesty, I mean she is a delightful person. She is a delightful, adorable, personable person. Communication is not a problem at all. Her English is fine, and to be quite honest, she's a delight to have around. She's a delight to have around, and you know the whole romantic aspect. It doesn't it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, you know. But the but anyway, so I you know, this morning I found myself thinking that you know sometimes 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 wisdom prevails, so to speak. And originally originally the plan, for those of you that have been following me for weeks or months or years for that matter, mm, you may recall that the plan was going to be that I fly up to, you know, I meet her in Cleveland, and she steps off the plane and steps into my camper. And as I had given that some thought, I thought that would be a real awkward situation, you know, for a young lady to step off a plane and just step into a camper and drive off into the sunset. And that's when I thought that it would probably be more appropriate to spend the better part of a week, week and a half in my home where we could acclimate to each other and we could, you know, build a certain level of trust, so to speak. You know, I mean, she's in my dad's room, and I'm in my room, and I told her, I said, you know, I said, I bet my dad's spirit is probably, I said, that's a special room. I said, I bet my dad's spirit is probably in that room looking over you, and and what have you. But the decision to stay here, the decision to stay here for the better part of a week has really provided the perfect environment to get to know each other. For her to feel comfortable with me, um, you know, and what have you. But anyway, so I thought that I would share this, share a rather personal story um, with you. And yesterday she and I went to buy a generator. Went to buy a generator, a big ass generator. It's 3,500 watt. It weighs 100 pounds, and it's a Predator. If you go online, you can look at it. It's called a Predator. Yeah, go on YouTube for that matter. Type in Predator generator 3500 or something like that, and that's the generator that we got. So we were pulling out of getting the generator at this store. We're pulling out of getting the generator, and I told her, I said, I said, it is so wonderful having you here. It is really wonderful having you here. You bring a lot of joy. I said, if you weren't here, I'd be just more times than not, I'm alone. More times than not, I'm alone. I said, having you here uh, is really it's nice. It's nice having you here. And I've never been one to, I've never really been one to withhold sharing sharing my feelings. And anyway, so as we were driving down the road, a good portion, a good portion of the conversation that, a good portion of the conversation that we have is relates to relates to spirituality. Oftentimes, our conversations will tend to gravitate toward spirituality, and in part because she is a practicing Buddhist. She's a practicing Buddhist, and I of course am a Christian. So naturally, our conversations kind of, you know, often we talk about God and what have you, and beliefs and that type of stuff. But anyway, so yesterday as we were driving out of this parking lot with the generator in the back of the truck, I I found myself after I found myself telling her that if she weren't here, I would be alone. And for whatever reason, I thought to share a story with her. And the story is that of a of an imaginary friend that I had, or maybe I still have. But anyway, when I was younger, growing up just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, there were often times that I would find myself in a situation with nobody to play with. Nobody would play with me, or nobody to play with. I had a best friend. His name was Michael. I had a best friend named Michael. And Michael and I, we were running mates right up until we were about, well, right up until about we were five, I think, 5 or 6 or something like that. Michael and I were inseparable. And boy, we used to hang out all day long and ride our bicycles and everything around the neighborhood. And then Michael had an accident. My best friend had an accident, and he fell on a. He was at recess one day at school, and he tripped on a curb and he fell, and there was a branch of a tree or something like that had been trimmed, and it went right into his eye. And boy, Michael was never the same after that. He was never the same Michael after that accident happened. And I was left without my best friend because he disappeared, after that happened. Not in a literal sense, but he was never the same, and that friendship with him more or less ended. And I found myself being more or less alone more times than not. Even though I came from a large family of 10, oftentimes I would find myself alone with nobody to play with. And about that same time, I was an altar boy. I was an altar boy. At a Catholic church, you know what an altar boy is. Yeah, it's the young boy, and they may have young ladies now as well. I think young girls, but anyway, I was an altar boy, and I used to do, I would do the Sunday mass. I'd have a Sunday mass, and then once a month or something like that for a week, I would do like I don't know, the 6 a.m. mass or whatever it was before school. But anyway, growing up in a Catholic church, and particularly being an altar boy, I used to be up there on that altar, and you'd look up at the cross, and you'd see Jesus hanging from the cross, all bloodied, and the thorn around his head and everything like that, looking down at you, And what's interesting is that during that time of my life, during that very formulative time of my life, when oftentimes I would find myself, in a situation where nobody would play with me. I was developing and nurturing a relationship with my imaginary friend. You know how little kids oftentimes will have an imaginary friend. Well, I had an imaginary friend, and that imaginary friend was Jesus. That Jesus was my imaginary friend. And I use the word imaginary, but only in the context of the story. But I developed and nurtured a relationship, and oftentimes it was, Jesus, why won't anyone play with me? Something like that, you know. But but as I was telling my LTC yesterday, I would be in a situation where I would find myself talking to God, just as I'm sitting here talking to you being her. I would have this ongoing dialogue as a little kid with God, and God was my imaginary friend. And I told her also. I said, there was a while there that I wanted to be a priest when I was a little kid. There was a there there was quite a period of time whereas I wanted to be a priest, and uh, and then I met Diane Schnook in the fourth grade, and that changed everything because I found out that I couldn't. If I was a priest, I wouldn't be able to kiss Diane Schnook. But anyway, so life is interesting because you look back on your life, and there's so many things that happen in your life that you don't understand at the time their significance until later in life. And that relationship with God that I developed at such an early stage in my life has had such a profound impact on the rest of my life. And I told her that when I was in my 20s, I left God altogether. I completely, for all intent and purpose, denounced God when I was in my 20s. And 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 in and it wasn't until my late 20s. It wasn't until my late 20s when I found God again, when I became born again, it, that all of a sudden that relationship with God came back. And it's just like, after that imaginary friend came back, so to speak. And it was just kind of like, after becoming born again, it's like, God came walking back into my life. He's like, hey, what's up? You know, and 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 I still have that relationship. So when you talk about being alone in the sense of being alone in myself, um, as I don't know if this sounds strange to some of you, but I have that imaginary friend. I have God. I have God that I often talk to. So I never feel quite all alone. And that's not to say, I don't mean to diminish the value and the benefit of having a significant other in your life, because that goes without saying. It goes without saying that, to have somebody special in your life is the ultimate thing that you want to do. But when there's times that you don't have that person in your life, such as now for myself, um, it's that relationship that I have with God that carries me through. And anyway, to wrap this story up, so as we were driving along yesterday, and I was telling her this story, and I said, so you know what? I said, so my imaginary friend, just so you know, my imaginary friend is in the back seat. And he's looking over me, and he's watching me, and he's making sure that I take good care of you and that I treat you right and that I'm kind and everything. And I said, and I said, I like to think that my father is looking down on me right now. And my father is watching me. My father is watching us. And and I said, with that thought in mind, that's in great part, what inspires me to treat you kindly, to treat you with, with care, to treat you with respect, and what have you. And anyway, so it's kind of like God is the backseat driver of life. You're going down the highway of life, and you've got your hands on the steering wheel. But all the while, you got God in the back seat, and he's telling you to slow down, or telling you to watch the car ahead, or to do whatever. But hmm, anyway, that is the thought for the day. But the other thing that's interesting is I told my LTC yesterday, or I told her before she even came. I said, you're not going to want to leave. When you come to America, you're not going to want to leave. I said, it's so beautiful. And I was thinking about the national parks and everything, and what have you, and just life in America. And I told her, I said that, I said, there's a saying, and the saying is, you can't miss what you've never had. You can't miss what you've never had. If you've never been to America, you can't miss America. And her and I were walking through Costco yesterday, and having spent the time that I've spent in Budapest and in Hungary, Hungary is a beautiful place. I love Hungary, but Hungary does not have the wealth and the abundance in the material sense of the word. And it doesn't have necessarily the quality of life that wealth and abundance brings, us Americans. And for somebody like her to step off a plane and to walk, through these places that we have here, these grocery stores with just a abundance of food, and to walk through the Costco's of the world. She bought a laptop here, and she has 90 days to return it for any reason. 90 days. She could walk in and say, I don't think I like the black color, you know, uh, and she could return it. And it's hard for a Hungarian to wrap their head around that. I mean, if you buy something in Hungary, to return it, it's not an easy process, let me tell you. But anyway, so it's got to be a little bit it's got to be a little bit challenging. It's got to be a little bit challenging for her. I would think, because she's going to immerse herself not only in the beauty of our national parks and in our country from coast to coast, but she's going to immerse herself in our day-to-day life. She's going to immerse herself in our culture of people saying, how are you today? And after 3 months, she's going to have to lead that. And I can tell you that there'll be no more truth to the saying, you can't miss what you've never had. Um, than when she steps on that plane in August. So anyway, but just to wrap up the thoughts, I gotta reiterate. I'm just throwing all types of big words out there today, aren't I? I just need to reiterate that what a joy, what a joy it is. What a joy it is to have her in my life, in whatever context. To have her in my life as a friend, or any other matter. I'm very very fortunate. I'm very very fortunate. And so with that being said, I will get on with my day and let you do the same. I'm on my way out for a bike ride. You can see the sun is, the daylight is just coming out right now. And, for whatever reason, I found the fire burning within me. Um, that was gone for quite a while. And the fire meaning that, I woke up I woke up this morning upstairs and my eyes opened up and interestingly enough, the first thing on my mind was bike ride. Bike ride. I want to get on the bike. I want to pedal. I want to feel the wind against my, well, no, I don't want to. I want to feel the wind against my back, not against my face. But anyway, so those are the thoughts for the day, and see what the question of the day is. Alexa, what's the question of the day?
Good morning. Here is today's question of the day. It's from our geography game pack and is worth 7 points. Which large Central Asian country shares borders with China and Russia and also has coastline on the Caspian Sea? You can choose from
India.
A. Kazakhstan, B. Mongolia, C. Iran, or D. India.
India.
I'm sorry, that's not correct. The
What?
correct answer was A. Kazakhstan. With Astana as its capital, Kazakhstan is the world's largest landlocked country.
Kazakhstan. I don't even know how to spell that. Anyway, so I got I think I had four in a row going into today. But so let's read the high hope and get on with the day. One thing at a time. Multitasking is greatly overrated. It can dissipate your efforts and cut your concentration span. Do it when you must, but when you can, focus all your energies on the task at hand. And that is that's the thought for the day. And the quote from the day is from Alexander Graham Bell. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. So, that's probably because he went around wearing SPF 50 sunscreen or something like that, you know. But anyway, so have a great day. And as my father would say to you, I love you all. All right. He used to say that. Remember when my dad used to do the videos? He'd sit at that table, he'd sit at that table with his morning coffee and newspaper, always telling me what the weather was like up in Cleveland. He was always quick to say, "I love you all," and that was just the kind of heart that he had in him. And boy, at 56 years old, I hope I hope I can grow old into being the same wonderful, loving man that my dad was. So, anyway, have a great day, everybody. Okay, take good care.